We're all making observations about the natural world in our everyday lives, which is in itself science. Because we're all scientists, we all have a reason to march. I march in defense of my friends, fellow students, and professors losing their grants, in support of everyone who worked their whole lives for scientific reasoning, and for future scientists who need funded schools with science-integrated curriculum. St. Louis, I just want to take a minute to say, look around at what you have done here today. Look at what this Midwest hub of innovation and research has accomplished. There are thousands of us out here standing up to show the nation that we are a force to be reckoned with. We are scientific and logical and creative and experimental and so much more. But most importantly, we are here. We're all standing up to show what we believe in. Time and time again, I'm reminded of just how proud I am to call this place my home, and how proud I am to call you all my community. And with that, please allow me to introduce one of our community's finest members, Dr. Jason Purnell of the Brown School at Washington University in St. Louis. Dr. Purnell is trained in applied psychology and public health. His research focuses on how socioeconomic and sociocultural factors influence health, and he also leads the For the Sake of All project, which focuses on improving the health of all people by eliminating racial inequities in the St. Louis region. Ladies and gentlemen, St. Louis Americans 2016 Person of the Year, Dr. Jason Purnell.
Thank you very much. So I speak an awful lot these days, but I have to admit to some struggle in coming up with fitting words to say at this March on Science, March for Science in St. Louis. It's not because I don't fully support science and the many advancements in basic discovery and quality of life that it affords. It is because marching for science seems so incongruent with the scientific pursuit. After all, we pride ourselves on our dispassionate objectivity. That was someone trained in behavioral science and who minored in philosophy. I have to say that we may often overstate our ability to be either perfectly dispassionate or objective. But marching would seem to be the kind of thing that simply isn't done by scientists. And not to put too fine a point on it, but I think we need to get over that. First and foremost, as I've suggested, science has never been devoid of value. The very idea of pursuing truth through a careful and replicable process of observation suggests all kinds of values. Chief among them, that truth ought to be something that we arrive at, circuitous and arduous as the many paths that lead to it may be. There is value worth defending in that. But if that is the only value of science that we defend, I'm afraid we will fail in our efforts to protect science and its myriad benefits bestowed upon society. In the watchwords of the clinical and translational scientists, we must become much more sophisticated and practiced at the art and science of dissemination and implementation. In more basic terms, we have to learn how to talk about evidence and actually put what we have shown to be effective in rigorous trials into action for the benefit of society in the real world. That doesn't mean, incidentally, that our challenge is merely or even principally to better prepare the public and policymakers to accept our evidence, though redoubling our efforts to increase scientific education and literacy are absolutely essential. Those efforts are necessary, but not sufficient. Our challenge is to change the way we do science and communicate about science so that we can be heard and thereby influence discussion and decision-making when it comes to the most pressing challenges of the day. I offer this admonition with full and intimate knowledge of how difficult this is to do. I've spent the last 4 years trying to communicate data and research evidence on what are called the social determinants of health. Factors like education, income, residential segregation, and the quality of neighborhoods, and how their impact on stark and often staggering disparities in health and other life outcomes. Like an 18-year gap in life expectancy between two zip codes separated by less than 10 miles in the St. Louis region. Or an infant mortality rate for African American babies that are 3 times the weight for white babies right here where we live. Those are sobering facts. But through our work on For the Sake of All, we have been able to raise awareness about these issues by combining the best available data and evidence, strategic approaches to communication, intensive engagement with communities and stakeholders, and we are beginning to see awareness move into action by understanding and influencing the decision-making and implementation process through regional cross-sector collaboration. I assure you that although the day-to-day dynamics can often feel quite random, there is nothing controlled about this vital work in our community. And that can be threatening to those who are wedded to a traditional view of the role of science. I'm not knocking the dedicated scientists who work hard to advance discovery through randomized controlled trials. Their insights are invaluable. Both their failures, which we would do well to report with more frequency, and their successes are the very lifeblood of our evidence base. But the challenges we face, from climate change to racial equity, will not be solved in the lab alone, nor will all the insights we need come from tightly controlled settings. In a similar vein, we cannot rely on any one discipline, nor the scientific community alone, to solve complex problems that beg for transdisciplinary solutions. That means scientists must become practiced at speaking with confidence and sophistication to policymakers, yes, but also to journalists and film producers, to historians and philosophers, to businesses and marketers, to consumers, to parents, to children, to everyone. And more than just speaking to them, we must be able to engage them in partnerships to solve problems. We have to step outside of our offices, outside of our labs, outside of our disciplines and the chauvinism that often attends our disciplinary identities, and outside of our comfort zones to create new teams and more powerful coalitions that advance science and speak clearly to its benefits to society. Those conversations and that collaboration cannot be aloof or esoteric. Highly specialized though our methods and our knowledge may be, we have to be as enthusiastic and accessible as Dr. Scott Sampson, better known as Dr. Scott the Paleontologist, on my 5-year-old son's favorite PBS kids show, Dinosaur Train. We have to bring science alive, and we have to bring science to where people are. So yes, by all means, let us continue to march for science, but let's also be very intentional about the work that we have to do before us. It is internal work as much as external. It suggests that if we want to see change, we must be changed. It also requires a healthy dose of realism about the limitations and the historical misuses of science, from phrenology to eugenics to human experimentation, stretching from Nazi Germany to Tuskegee, Alabama, and beyond. Like anything that can be manipulated for human use, science has the potential to harm as much as help, and we would do well to remember that history and its legacy, even as we hold up the value of science, committing ourselves to the highest ethical and professional standards in all the work that we do. We cannot repeat the mistakes of the past, nor will hubris serve us well in the days ahead. Science, after all, is about a fundamental kind of epistemic humility. Rather than claiming to have the best facts or peddling in alternative facts, science searches for all of the facts through a rigorous process of discovery that starts not with bravado, but with childlike wonder. we asked with another PBS stalwart, Sid the Science Kid, how does this thing work? Why does that stuff change? How did that do what it just did? And our answers bring us to closer and closer approximations of the truth. That is a remarkable undertaking and a noble pursuit. And rather than collect it only in journal articles or cloistered in scientific conferences, we've got to give more of that wonder away. And we've got to retool our work so that more of what we know about what can help the world actually gets used in the world. Those are things definitely worth marching for. Thank you.